Everybody, welcome back in another exciting edition of the Star Wipe Lounge.
Heyo, everybody.
This is Owen, of course, if you're familiar with the podcast. If you're a first-time listener, welcome into the lounge. We're going to be talking about American films.
Yes. So, as he said, that's Owen. I'm John. This week is 4th of July, the most America of American holidays. So we felt like it was appropriate to talk about like what super patriotic movies or like movies that just scream America. Some of them that literally have America in the title.
Or a certain holiday in the title.
Or a certain holiday in the title.
You know, I feel like in, July, or technically it'll still be June when this drops on June 30th, but...
Yes, close enough.
In June, July 2019, it's not the most in vogue thing to be rah-rah patriotic with our fractured political climate. We're not going to talk about that.
At least not with the kind of people who probably listen to podcasts. They're not exactly the most like super patriotic, woo, America kind of people.
Well, here's the thing. A lot of these films can, I think, remind us of what makes America in a positive way.
Of, if you would be so kind, makes America great.
I don't want to use those. I don't want to use that exact language. I tiptoed around that.
I felt you tiptoeing around it, so I figured I'd steer into it.
Man, just stole those words. You can't use them no more.
He really did.
You can't use them anymore.
He stole those words and red hats.
I know, dude. You can't wear a red hat anymore.
It's kind of funny seeing like people wearing red hats walking down the street that are like unrelated and still getting hate.
Well, that was like a guy knew in Corvallis because the Portland Timbers colors are very similar to the Oregon Ducks. And he was walking around in a Portland Timbers shirt, which looked like an Oregon Duck shirt, and people were like, "Fuck you!" And he's like, "Dude, it's
Timbers. It's unrelated.
Come on, man." Yeah.
Well, I mean, like, you'd get the same kind of stuff when you were down in Eugene if you were wearing, like, a San Francisco Giants shirt, you know?
Anything orange or black.
Yeah.
You would get verbally shit on.
Yeah, it's pretty gnarly.
But we're going to talk about some of our favorite patriotic films, just American-related films. A lot of them don't necessarily need to be, like super explicit. Like, obviously, we're going to talk about Independence Day. That is explicit, like America. There's even a line in the movie where like the British Special Forces are like, "Oh, the Americans are launching a counteroffensive." He's like, "Well, it's about time they figured it out.
It's about bloody time.
What do they plan to do?" It's like we're all like the rest of the world is just waiting on America to figure this shit out.
Waiting with bated breath for America to take charge and do something. But Independence Day is a fantastic example of like a quintessentially American film.
I mean, it's in the title.
Yeah. It's Independence Day. Like,
so let's start with Independence Day.
Yeah, since I feel like it, as I said, it's a quintessential example of what we're talking about here.
It's very like one thing that Americans can do a really, really good job of is, at least in the past, I don't know about now, but is like uniting against a common foe.
Yeah.
And invading aliens works so perfectly for that. So it's just like,
yeah, because like nobody's gonna sympathize with invading aliens.
No,
like no one's gonna watch that movie and go, you know what, the whole time I was rooting for the aliens.
Well, there's like no nuance with the aliens. Like,
yeah, they literally just show up and blow up the White House,
and that's like yeah. And that's like their whole MO. Like there's the scene when they do the autopsy and he's basically like, we go from planet to planet and harvest everyone. Like that's their thing.
Yeah.
There's no like other motivation. There's no anything else. They just want to kill us and we need to fight back.
And like President Pullman at one point like says like, you know, they're here to completely annihilate us.
We're facing annihilation
in the best presidential speech in a movie ever.
Absolutely. That movie is one that has a big ensemble cast. Who'd you say is the main protagonist of Independence Day?
I would say it's Jeff Goldblum.
Jeff Goldblum?
Yeah, probably. Because a lot of the like plot focuses on stuff that he's doing. And the other people kind of show up for their segments, but I feel like Jeff Goldblum's like the main character, as it were.
Yeah.
But you could probably make the argument for like 3 or 4 people.
I usually gravitate toward President Pullman,
who has an actual name. But for the life of me, I can't remember.
I don't remember what it was. He's President Pullman.
He's President Bill Pullman.
Yeah, he to me is very much like the protagonist.
I could definitely see him being like a close second in terms of who I would argue is the main character.
Well, I feel like both Jeff Goldblum and Bill Pullman in that movie have the like best character arcs.
Yeah, and they have like actual full arcs.
Yeah.
I mean, like Will Smith's character certainly does a lot in that film, but I don't know if I would necessarily say that his character's arc is fully fulfilled.
I mean, I think in a bit of a subtle way, because his whole goal, like he wanted to be an astronaut.
Yeah.
And then he finally gets to go to space at the end.
Or let me rephrase kind of what I'm saying. Like his arc was a very personal arc, and really could have happened with any major catastrophe.
Well, yeah, he doesn't undergo as much change. Like for me, President Pullman like starts off as kind of like a weak,
he's down in the polls.
He's not a great president. He's not a great leader.
Yeah.
His whole plan when they invade is like, let's just sit tight and not do anything to not cause a panic. And his decisions cause people like lots of lives, and then they try to like nuke the aliens and they blow up an entire fucking city, and it's all on him.
And by the end of the film, he's literally in an F-16 leading the people.
Exactly. That's exactly it. Yeah, he starts off as kind of shitty president, gives the awesome speech, and then he's in the fight at the end.
Yeah, which is not a presidential thing to do. There's no way that in any situation would they ever let the president do that.
No. But I mean, maybe in that scenario, it's like, it's his do or die.
Although, to be fair,
we need all the pilots available.
Can you imagine any of the last, like, let's say 10 presidents willingly doing that?
I mean, I'm trying to think of any president recently with military experience.
Well, like, let's just assume that they all had military experience. Could you imagine any of them doing that?
No.
No.
Maybe... no.
Maybe Reagan, just because he was very, like... hoorah man.
Yeah.
Like maybe he would try it and
Reagan smash.
Yeah, Reagan smash. And then maybe get shot down within like 5 minutes.
Yeah.
But and that's not a knock against Reagan. That's just straight up saying that like in a battle like that, your chances of surviving are nil.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nobody has any missiles left. But the more I think about the movie, like there's a lot of really fully fleshed out, well realized characters in that movie.
Yeah. Even
the drunken farmer guy.
Yeah. What the hell's that?
I don't know his name.
He's what is that actor?
I don't know.
He's one of those he's a member of one of those acting families.
Not the Baldwins.
Not the Baldwins.
Anyway, yeah, he has a character arc. Like it's pretty fully actualized, especially at the end when he sacrifices himself to kill the aliens.
Hello, boys. I'm back.
Cheesy as fuck.
Yeah.
But that adds to the like Americanness of the movie, I think.
Yeah.
The cheese factor, the one-liners, especially from Will Smith, and like
Welcome to Earth.
Welcome to Earth. It's just a fabulous movie celebrating the awesomeness of the United States of America.
Yeah. And like I know that at the end of the film it's supposed to be like, yeah, there's world unity and everything's great, but let's be honest, it was America.
Well,
100% America.
Well, that's one of the things about American exceptionalism is that we feel like we are the leaders of the free world, and so in that movie, the United States unites the world in harmony or whatever.
Yeah. We won't talk about the sequel to that film, which is a hot steaming pile of garbage. So we're just going to move on from that to talk about another like very American film, because when we talked about doing this topic, there were 2 films that immediately came to mind for me. There was Independence Day, and then there was the film featuring the second best movie president ever, which is Air Force One.
Air Force One,
where Harrison Ford as the president kicks the shit out of some terrorists.
Yeah, Air Force One, man.
Yet another thing that no president would ever actually do.
Well, that's, I think, another thing that makes a lot of these films like so quote unquote American, or like they're such a hyper fictionalized version of the president that you like want to think of the president as this like awesome like action hero.
Yeah, there's kind of this ideal that the American president is somebody who will kick the shit out of bad guys. And like you saw that during the Obama years. You had a lot of people like really glorifying Obama and saying that he's like a super badass, and you got it nowadays with Trump. There's a lot of people saying that like Trump's a badass.
You've seen, like, if you've been on the internet for a while, you've seen those weird drawings of like Trump with guns on a tank or some shit, which is like fucking laughable.
Even though he spends most of his days like watching Fox News and eating cheeseburgers
and golfing.
Like he like not shitting on Trump, shitting on all presidents.
The point is, the president is not an action hero.
They are not action heroes. They're not running around shooting up terrorists. Like, it's
and
just
taking
not...
like Air Force One gets hijacked by terrorists. The president isn't going to take it back.
No, the president would be one of those people down in the, like, if he did manage to get away from the terrorists, he'd be chilling out in the cargo hold down below, like trying to communicate with the people on the ground. That would be the most you would expect. That would be reasonable to expect from the president. But still, it's a fantastic film, just for the sheer fact that we get, as I said, the second best movie president of all time. You get to see Harrison Ford doing Harrison Fordy things, kicking ass, taking names,
taking back Air Force One,
America. And at the end of it, you get the worst bit of CGI of the
Air Force that was actually on that corridor on the corridor video.
Their VFX artists react. One of their episodes, they looked at the crash of Air Force One.
It was just like, oof.
Yeah, ooh.
That's tough.
Yeah,
that's a tough one.
I mean, it was like late '90s. What can you expect from it?
Still,
but still, super fun film.
The action hero president, though, that's like
action hero president is a trope that we're gonna see quite a bit, I think.
Well, here's another one that immediately came to mind. Not a movie that I like, because it was in like a time period where this actor director did just a bunch of really fucking dramatic, really violent historical pieces, which I'm referring to The Patriot from Mel Gibson.
Yes.
It was kind of in his like...
Who directed that? Was that directed by Mel Gibson?
It might have been Mel Gibson again. Either way, it was kind of in his Braveheart. It was like, I think it was post Braveheart.
It was post Braveheart,
and it was basically just, let's make Braveheart in the American Revolution.
Yeah,
which I didn't love, but you'd be remiss to not talk about it because A, it's fucking called The Patriot, and I'm fairly certain he like. At least in the DVD case or the posters, he like is running at the camera or at you with an American flag.
Yeah, there's a shot in the film where it's during like the big battle at the end. He kills somebody with an American flag, and so he like turns around. He's got a musket in one hand. And he's got the American flag in the other one. He runs in slow motion, charging forward.
Jesus.
Yeah, it was definitely.
Also, ironic.
It was directed by Roland Emmerich.
Really?
Yeah.
Also directed Independence Day.
Probably the least Roland Emmerich.
Yeah, there's no buildings exploding.
Yeah, no. Well, I mean, it's kind of hard to do in the Revolutionary War.
But yeah, isn't it ironic though that the movie called The Patriot is starring an Australian man?
Yes. 2 Australian men, because Heath Ledger was also in it.
That's right.
That was actually the first film that
he plays his son, right?
Yeah.
Who gets killed.
That was actually the first role that I remembered Heath Ledger in. It wasn't the first one that he did. It was the first one that I like remember watching as a kid. But I will give The Patriot, like, it's an okay film. It's not bad. It's not great. It just is what it is. But I will give it credit for being one of those rare films set in the Revolutionary War. We have a surprisingly low number of those movies.
Yeah, I mean, for how much we as Americans like glorify and aggrandize the Revolutionary War, maybe because visually, as far as war goes, not as interesting as like World War II or so. You don't really see World War I movies either. No,
there's a small handful of them, but not very many. But
I think World War I might not be the visuals. It might just be because that. We love to talk about World War II, and we love to talk about
because that was like
a just righteous cause.
Yeah,
and World War I was kind of just a clusterfuck.
It was a bit muddier, and plus America didn't have as large of a part in World War I as like Britain or France or anything like that. So like World War II was like our heyday. That was literally America rolling in to save the world.
Yeah.
Like that is the most like atypical America storyline, is what actually happened for the most part. You could make the argument.
Speaking of World War II, couple really good World War II movies that just scream America. One of which is Patton. Our boy George C. Scott.
Yeah. Like that film, you have to know that that's like a super American film, because when you say the name Patton, the shot that everyone thinks of is Patton standing in front of the American flag.
Yeah.
Like,
and that movie definitely has a lot of, you know, American military exceptionalism, that we were better than everyone.
Yeah.
Like, I remember there was a scene, I think this is somewhat historically accurate too, where there was a like strategy developed by one of the like British generals, and Patton was like, no, I want to be in charge of this, and they're like, let's just give it to him, and it turned out to be like a disaster. That might have been Operation Market Garden.
Yeah, Market Garden did not end well.
Yeah.
I don't think Patton was in charge.
No, he did North Africa and Italy.
Yeah.
At least that's where the majority of the movie takes place.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of stuff in the movie of him like wanting to get to the German front, I think.
Yeah.
If I remember correctly. It's been a long time since I've seen it.
Because he was fighting Italians and he wanted to be fighting Germans.
Well, and there's that one scene where he like basically like verbally eviscerates the like shell shocked soldier.
Yeah.
That's an interesting scene.
It's definitely one to look back like with modern eyes and see like sort of the mentality towards PTSD and some of the mental problems that war brings on.
Well, if I remember correctly, he didn't come off as heroic in that scene.
No.
If I remember correctly. It's been a long time since I've watched Patton.
Yeah, it's been probably a decade since I saw Patton.
I remember that having some nuance, because I feel like in a more like rah-rah American movie, especially like, let's say if you wanted to go like full on, we're going to make this as patriotic as possible, have the soldier be not an American soldier, and then have Patton like...
Yeah, he's like a pussy Brit or something.
Yeah.
And then like, yeah, Patton like tears into him.
And it's like, yeah, get him. He's being a bitch.
Yeah. Like all Brits, they're just being bitches. No offense to any Brits who listen to the podcast. I don't think that.
No.
Not at all.
But in the world of
you guys
like...
make Doctor Who, and I'm all
in the world of super hyper patriotic films...
That's what you would see.
Yeah.
But yeah, World War II, there's like so many World War II films that we could dive into.
So many John Wayne movies.
So many John Wayne movies. So many World War II John Wayne movies.
Yeah.
But I think the World War II movie that to me is like the epitome of World War II movies. The one that like, if I'm going to go watch a movie about World War II, I'm going to watch this film, and that's Saving Private Ryan.
Oh, absolutely.
There's nothing like outwardly like oorah America about it, I feel, but it lays a lot. It pays
so much deference.
Yeah.
To the soldiers of World War II.
Yeah.
Like that's to me. Yeah, it doesn't have the rah-rah factor, but it so well recreates that what they experienced, and pays so much respect and deference to what they all went through.
Yeah.
And that's where it gets, like, as far as patriotic movies go, that might be the best one.
That's how I like my patriotic movies to be.
Yeah.
They aren't like in your face with American symbolism. They're like, this is some shit that happened, and these are the brave people who dealt with it. We should honor them.
Yeah. I mean, we have a personal experience in relation to Saving Private Ryan, because when we went to France when we were like 17, went to the D-Day Memorial.
Yeah.
If you've never been there, go.
That is some powerful shit.
It fucks you up.
It does.
I think everybody cried.
Yeah,
when we were
basically
there.
Either at the D-Day Memorial, or we actually did go to some of the beaches in Normandy as well.
Yeah.
And like, if you didn't cry at one, you cried at the other.
Yeah, and you know, there's the scene at the very end when, you know, Matt Damon's character like visits the headstone.
Visits, Tom Hanks's characters.
And
headstone.
Like that is such a powerful moment, such a powerful shot, so well executed.
Yeah.
And he, like, his character actually went through all that shit.
Yeah. And so, like, just the whole thing.
And the premise alone that, like, this squad is going to bring this guy home because his whole family's gone.
Yeah. Because he's the last of his line.
And that they're willing to make the sacrifice for him because that's what that being in that like unit was about.
And then at the end of the film, you get the same kind of camaraderie feeling because Matt Damon, like, refuses to leave his unit.
Yeah.
Like, which leads to this big battle where basically all of our main characters get wiped out. Because they're like, okay, well, he's not going to leave his unit and we're not going to leave him, so I guess we're going to do this.
Yeah.
And everybody dies, basically.
The tank shot.
Yeah. Tom Hanks is sitting there with his, frickin' 1911 shooting at the tank.
Fucking exceptional movie.
Oh, yeah. It's a fantastic film.
It's probably top 5 Spielberg.
If not number 1, to be honest. And I'm saying that as a huge fan of Jaws and Jurassic Park and all that. Like, it's just such an exceptionally made film that I think that it definitely deserves to be in the upper echelons. And also a film that got quite a few re-releases over the years, including in theaters. I think like 3 or 4 times, if I remember correctly. So definitely a film worth checking out if you have not seen it. But I feel like you've seen it.
If you haven't seen Saving Private Ryan, man,
if you're listening to this podcast and you haven't seen it, something's wrong.
you got your wires crossed.
You shouldn't be doing like, deep cut podcasts about movies and not have seen like one of the best films ever made. You should probably go check that out.
Well, speaking of Tom Hanks, here's another like low-key patriotic film because it harkens back to a period of history where we really, really like pushed as a nation to accomplish something, which was Apollo 13.
Apollo 13.
Apollo 13 is fucking fabulous.
Yeah, it's a great movie.
It's got
one that not a lot of people talk about these days.
No, I mean, the cast it's got Tom Hanks, it's got fucking Bill Paxton, it's got Kevin Bacon. It's got Gary Sinise, it's got Ed Harris.
It's brilliant. The cast is solid, the writing is solid, the delivery on the parts of the actors, obviously, like, super great. And as you said, it covers a period of time when, like, America was trying to accomplish something for American pride.
Yeah.
Because, like, that's what the space race was. It wasn't, like... There wasn't a direct conflict between America and the Soviet Union over it. It was literally we were trying to do it so that we could say we're better than you. Which is, again, one of the most American things that I think you could possibly do. Is us, like, doing something literally just to go, ha-ha, we did it first, suck it.
Well, I think that's where Apollo 13 kind of, in a sort of Saving Private Ryan way, like, transcends that, because you could have done an Apollo 11 movie, which I think they did recently, called like First Man.
Yeah, with Ryan
Gosling.
Yeah,
which I hadn't seen yet, but
I heard middling things about it.
It's on my list.
Yeah,
but that they choose the Apollo 13 story instead of Apollo 11.
Yeah,
is an interesting choice.
Where like
everything goes wrong.
We weren't at our best because like stuff started going wrong.
But no, that's the point. Is that the adversity brought out the best in everyone to make sure they all got back alive.
Yeah.
Like that was, to me, the
spoiler alert, they did.
In reality. It was a true story.
True story.
But yeah, that story, like, the adversity, I think, is what brings the patriotism out for me. Because I feel pretty patriotic watching Apollo 13, especially like when Ed Harris is like firing up all the scientists at Houston. He's like America, like the United States has never lost a man in space, and we're not going to do it today.
Yeah.
And then everyone is like working around the fucking clock, and like Gary Sinise is like doing the simulations, and they're like, you need a break. And he's like, if they don't get a break, I don't get a break. It's just it's so good.
So good. And plus on top of that, it's just like you watch it and you're like, wow, this was a true story that actually happened, where they faced overwhelming odds and managed to overcome them through just sheer determination and the computing power of a pocket calculator.
Well, yeah, and yeah, it's like sheer determination and cleverness and innovation.
Yeah.
Which all of those things are very like big values that Americans hold very near, which is
And it's just on top of that, like, it's just another excuse to watch Tom Hanks, who to me I think might be my favorite actor. Like, he's always just so good in pretty much every role, except for that Dungeons and Dragons film that he did, where he like went insane and went into the sewers because he was playing Dungeons and Dragons.
I don't know that movie at all.
It was a movie that was released like in the 80s during the height of the like, you know, that like Dungeons and Dragons like craze where everyone was like, it's Satanism and it's driving people nuts and everything. Well, in the movie, like, Tom Hanks is playing Dungeons and Dragons with some kids he's going to college with, and he like goes nuts and goes into a sewer and like kills people, and it's weird. It's real weird.
That sounds wild.
Yeah, it is. It's very wild and very bad. Not Tom Hanks's fault though.
No, but yeah. Hard to top Apollo 13.
Speaking of Tom Hanks, I feel like a movie that you might not necessarily immediately think is patriotic, but when you really stop and think about it, really hits on the heart and soul of what it means to be American, is Forrest Gump.
Forrest Gump, dude.
Forrest Gump. Fantastic film. Follows Forrest throughout like a whole crap ton of major American events of the last century.
Yeah. For real. Yeah. That is, I think Apollo 13 and Forrest Gump are Robert Zemeckis.
I believe so.
I know Forrest Gump is for sure.
Yeah.
I don't know about Apollo 13. I'm pretty sure it is though. But yeah, that's one that is fascinating because you basically see all of these really important historical events like just through the lens of this one character.
It is Robert Zemeckis.
Yeah, Robert Zemeckis, man, he's underrated.
Yeah.
He's one of those directors where like you look back at a movie that you like loved and you're like, oh yeah, that was him.
But yeah, it's a film that I feel like people don't necessarily consider it like being super patriotic because like there's a lot of scenes of like, for instance, like protesting the Vietnam War and like things of this nature, some things that some people would consider not patriotic. Although I would argue that it's the other way around, that protesting is literally the most American thing that you can possibly do.
Yeah, I mean,
because the fact that we have the right to protest wars like the Vietnam War kind of shows that, you know, that's how great this country is, that we can do that, whereas in some other countries in the world, that'll get you killed.
I mean, they put that amendment first.
It's true. For a reason.
Yeah, and I mean, you see this character interact with fucking JFK, and I think Nixon too at one point.
I'm not sure about Nixon, but I wouldn't be surprised. It's been quite a while since I've watched Forrest Gump, but
yeah, and all the you know, the Vietnam War, if you compare films about Vietnam to films about World War II, they're very different.
Yeah.
Because, again, World War II was like our finest hour. It was a unambiguously fucking evil that we went and we beat.
Yeah, you don't get much more evil than Hitler.
No, you can't.
No.
Unambiguously evil foe. We were the Allies and we took him out. Awesome. We love it.
Yeah.
And then the Cold War happens, and then you get into a lot more muddied, more ambiguous.
Suddenly, the Vietnam War and some of the fights in Afghanistan.
A lot of like proxy wars.
And, yeah, all the stuff with the Contras. It kind of got a little gray there for a while, and so you can see that in the Vietnam War films like Apocalypse Now.
Oh yeah,
Platoon, all these movies that like
Thin Red Line,
where it's less about, hey, we're going to war to defeat an evil, and more about we're at war and we're trying to survive. You know,
and that's a kind of patriotic idea too. as well. Like not everything is black and white. The Vietnam War was what it was, and everyone's right to protest the war was a very American thing to do. That's not all you see in Forrest Gump. There's a lot of stuff in Forrest Gump.
I would say a lot of the main a lot of the main body of that film that people think about is Vietnam War and the aftermath of Vietnam War.
Yeah, and even his like running thing.
Yeah.
When he started running around the country, that is something that would capture the fascination of the country. Some guy just running.
Oh, 100%. If some dude just ran across the country, like I think he ran across the country like 3 or 4 times or something like that, like that would be like that dude would be a folk hero.
Yeah.
Like it'd be national news. You'd have people like he'd be on T-shirts and all kinds of stuff. You know, especially if he then also accidentally created the smiley face, which is the only scene in that film I think that I like that makes me groan, is because like it's just so stupid.
Well, yeah, Forrest Gump's fantastic. Robert Zemeckis and Tom Hanks are a great duo.
Basically, what we're saying is, if Tom Hanks is in a movie, just watch it because it's probably very American.
Yeah, for real. Here's a couple more. We've talked about some more like ambiguously patriotic films. Let's go back into the more like rah, this is really hitting you in the face. I actually want to contrast 2 movies in their patriotism. One is the original Rocky.
Yes.
So the original Rocky, I think, is an extremely patriotic film in its way because that story of Rocky is a very like rags to riches.
Yeah, it's pull yourself up by your bootstraps, kind of very classic American idea.
Yeah. And then, I mean, I think that's a little more nuanced because, you know, he's the Italian stallion, which is kind of a foreign moniker, and he's going up against Apollo Creed in his America pants.
In his America pants.
his American flag trunks. And so a more nuanced patriotic film, and then you jump to Rocky 4, which has no nuance whatsoever.
It is so in your face with the patriotism because it's literally the Cold War in a boxing match.
Yeah.
It's America versus communist Russia.
In a boxing match.
In a boxing match going head to head, and America wins.
Yeah.
Like,
and just like to me, the most iconic bit from Rocky 4 is the training montage.
Yes.
Because for those who've never seen Rocky 4, which if you're going to see Rocky movies, watch Rocky 1, Rocky 4, Creed.
I would say
Rocky 1 and 2.
Like, if you're gonna watch including the Creed films, you need to watch Rocky 2 just because then Creed makes a bit more sense. But yeah, you don't need to watch Rocky 3 and Rocky 5 and Rocky Balboa didn't need to happen. So yeah, just 1, 2, 4, Creed. And then probably Creed 2.
Anyway,
I haven't seen Creed 2, so I can't speak to that.
So for those of you who haven't seen it, so the Russian government like invites him to like come train or something like that. I don't remember exactly why he goes to train there. Maybe to get used to the altitude or something like that.
I don't fully remember the setup.
But anyway,
yeah, it was something like that.
His like training digs is like a cabin in the woods of Siberia. Meanwhile, the Russian guy, what's his name again?
Ivan Drago.
Ivan Drago is training in this like state-of-the-art Russian facility. He's being injected with fucking steroids. They've got all these electrodes on him to like measure his like punch power. Meanwhile, Rocky's just like running through the snow, lifting logs, like doing push-ups with a wagon and shit. And it's fucking great.
Like because it's like it's again, it goes back to that like
the adversity
thing, which America as a idea doesn't face too much adversity in the world. Like, we're the richest nation, we're the superpower. There's not really any adversity.
I mean, we started with adversity.
We did
a lot of adversity,
and we kicked its ass, and now we're where we are.
So we love those stories of someone triumphing over a more powerful foe.
Yeah, but all this making the Americans the one who are facing the adversity, like that's not reality. But like, because realistically, the American would be the one in the high tech training facility.
But I mean, that's kind of the like.
It's just the very like stereotypical idea of an American patriotic story.
Yeah. Yeah, and he wins the fight. He wins the fight against the massive Russian guy, and he's like iron when he's like because for some reason Rocky doesn't know how to block punches.
No,
in like any of the movies, he just gets his shit kicked in.
I think that's actually like a point in the first film.
Yeah.
That like Mickey brings up is that he doesn't know how to block.
Yeah, so like in every Rocky movie, the formula goes, he like trains for a while and then he does the fight, and then he gets his shit kicked in for like 13 rounds. But then in the final round, to win in the end.
In the final round, he sees Adrian in the crowd or something, and he just like goes at it.
No, I mean,
I think in Rocky IV he sees like an American flag or something, and then he's like America.
the first Rocky movie is pretty nuanced, though.
He gets imbued with the like ghost of George Washington, and suddenly has to like kick the shit out of this commie bastard.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of the like extremely patriotic movies happened in the 80s. Yeah, because another one that came out in the 80s is Top Gun.
Yes. Well, because in the 80s, you know, you're at peak Cold War.
Because you're in when was Reagan's first term? 82?
82, 84, one of those two.
Because he was a two-term.
Yeah.
So yeah, he was a two-term for sure. So you've got the Reagan years. I know that like, Reagan was very like aggressive in his diplomacy with Russia.
Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall.
With the USSR.
Reagan smash.
2 Reagan smash jokes.
Anytime he comes up, there's
Rocky IV is very like height of Cold War movie. So is Top Gun for sure.
Yeah. Red Dawn also super.
Yeah.
Like I don't think it gets any more like Cold War-y than Red Dawn.
Yeah, because that was like the fears that everyone had during the Cold War was them just invading all of a sudden.
Yeah, and then suddenly a bunch of like teenagers have to fight.
Wolverines.
Yeah.
But yeah, let's talk about Top Gun a little bit though.
Yeah, let's touch on Top Gun.
Because Top Gun, I feel like if you look at Saving Private Ryan as like a war movie, it doesn't like. I mean, it glorifies it in a way. It glorifies the sacrifice.
Yeah, I think it glorifies the people, what the people are going through, and it glorifies them. Whereas Top Gun glorifies service,
glorifies the cool ass jets.
Like you join the Air Force, suddenly you get popping pecs and you're playing volleyball and all sweaty
and you're flying jets.
Like that's just in aviators. That's just your life. Like you join the Air Force, this is what you have to look forward to.
You're riding on a motorcycle, and then you take
you're
classes
banging a hot
and
psychiatrist
you bang the hot professor or whatever
the hell she was. I don't know.
And you're doing like sick jet moves, and then your instructor's like, "Oh, that move was too dangerous, Maverick."
Yeah, you get cool names like Maverick and Iceman.
Goose.
Goose is not cool. That is not a cool name, but you get the point. like
wasn't there one like Slider or something like that?
Something like that.
They all had like,
I don't remember all their names.
The code names and shit. Yeah. Really like glorifies being they're in the Navy. They were Navy pilots, not Air Force pilots.
Well, yeah, but
either way,
they were pilots. That's the point.
Just really glorifies the idea of being in the military.
It's like you join the Navy, you will accelerate your life.
Accelerate your life.
Keith David told me
they have a new slogan. The Navy has a new slogan. I forgot what it is.
Yeah, but if it's not being said by Keith David, I don't care.
It's not being said by Keith David.
Then I don't care.
Yeah, I feel like most people, when they think Tom Cruise, they think Top Gun.
Top Gun's probably the one. Top Gun or Mission Impossible are the two movies that I think.
Also, one thing about Top Gun, how did they not start World War III at the end of the movie?
Maybe they'll explore that.
Well, because
Top Gun too.
Because he straight up blows up a Russian MiG at the end of the movie.
Yeah. See, that's the thing that you don't know. Like, they're going to come out with Top Gun 2, and it's going to be a post-apocalyptic film after World War III, and it's going to be Tom Cruise in the wastes, just being like, we shouldn't have done that.
That was a mistake.
That
was too much of a maverick move.
You don't know what I went through. I started the war. Now I got to end it. Like, that's how that movie's going to go. And then Tom Cruise is going to run.
Yeah,
because he always runs.
Does his run?
He's gonna do his run.
It's gonna be Mad Max style, but instead of a car, it's a jet.
It's just Tom Cruise running.
He's like, no. It's like Tom Cruise is like fixing up his jet so he can go like fly off or something. I don't know, something weird. No, I think Top Gun 2. He's supposed to be like an instructor now at the Top Gun school.
Something like that. It wouldn't surprise me. I haven't heard too much about Top Gun 2. I know that it's in development.
Actually, fun fact about Top Gun that our listeners may not know. So, my girlfriend Roberta's father is in Top Gun, and he has a speaking line.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
So when they have the crash thing and Goose ejects and dies in the water, Burchard Kelly, it was a Coast Guard rescue swimmer. He's in this movie. He's the one who jumps down in the ocean and rescues Tom Cruise and said, "You got to let him go."
It's a very powerful line for Bertram.
Burchard,
whatever.
Burchard Kelly, Coast Guard Master Chief. Shout out to him and his role in Top Gun.
Because of all the people that we shout out on this podcast, he's probably the most likely to
likely to listen. He's a big podcast guy.
Because like Jason Blum's not listening, but
No.
like
Roberta's dad, maybe.
Roberta's dad might be listening.
Probably not, though.
If this was an episode of Bert and the Boys, he would be listening.
No, he wouldn't.
No, he wouldn't. Nobody listened to Bert and the Boys.
Hey, there was one episode of Bert and the Boys that we had like 200 plays on.
Be real. Was that just you refreshing?
No,
play?
No, it was inexplicable. One episode.
I gotta make fun of Bert and the Boys because you gotta kick them when they're down.
Well, we're not bringing it back.
Yeah, I know. That's why I gotta kick them when they're down. I am bummed that we never got to do our Bert and the Boys Star Wipe Lounge crossover.
Reviewing the Marine movies.
Yeah, we were gonna review the Marine.
Speaking of patriotic movies, the fucking Marine.
Yeah,
all those movies.
We were gonna review the Marine movies. I think we talked about doing like half of them on Bert and the Boys and half of them on Star Wipe Lounge.
We might do that someday. Still,
someday we'll bring back the old Bert and the Boy crew just for that.
Just
episode.
For that.
But yeah. Top Gun, just the 80s in general, were just very like hoorah America patriotic time.
It's had to be the Cold War.
Yeah,
There was kind of
100%. It was the Cold War. Cold War had an effect on every aspect of American life, including film. Like it was huge in film. You got Rocky IV during that time. You got Top Gun, Red Dawn, like all these movies that were very like we're fighting the Russians.
You want to talk about Red Dawn a little bit?
Yes, let's talk about Red Dawn, and not the remake starring Hemsworth, where he is fighting North Koreans, because that movie is a pile of dog shit.
One of the more interesting things about Red Dawn to me was that they didn't make the main antagonists Russian. They were just backed by Russians.
Yeah,
he was like a Cuban guy or something.
That's who the like main general dude was. Yeah,
and if I remember correctly, the main general guy was like. He had a bit of nuance. He wasn't like a cartoonishly evil guy.
No, he was like doing, sort of realistic things. Like he would. If I remember correctly, there were a couple of moments where he kind of questioned the fact that they were like in a Colorado town, like, killing civilians.
Well, to me, the most, because that movie to me isn't very like oorah. It's kind of fucking dark. Like, especially when one of them betrays the group.
Yeah, and they
execute him.
Yeah, Charlie Sheen just like wastes him.
Yeah, and then fucking Swayze and Sheen die at the end.
Yeah,
like that's a dark ass movie.
Yeah, I think the only people who survive, I think Leah Thompson survives, and like two other people.
Yeah,
and that's it. And they survive in that like they're walking off into the distance, back into the wilds. Like completely defeated.
Yeah, because that movie is basically like kind of more exploring like the horrors of war and like forcing kids to like take up the mantle of that, like something they're not ready to do.
Yeah.
Because I think when most people think about Red Dawn, they just think of like, oh, Wolverines kill the Russians, blah 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 blah. But
blow up communists.
Yeah, and then there's like that scene where they're like trying to cross that like snowy field, and there's like a fucking tank, and like C. Thomas Howell like blows up the tank, and it's like fucking there's escalation.
Yeah.
Because at first it's just them like living in the woods surviving, and then like people find them and they have to like defend themselves, and then they escalate to like doing the guerrilla raids, and then it escalates to like being straight up military by the end.
Yeah, and there's like just some really horrible shit that happens in that film. And like I definitely do feel like people walked away from that movie, and they still walk away from that movie with sort of the wrong feeling. Because again, people do walk away from it being like, yeah, Wolverines, yeah, when really they should be walking away from it going, wow, that would suck.
Yeah.
Like, majorly, every aspect of this would just blow for everyone involved.
Well, yeah, one thing about living in the United States is that we've never been invaded.
No.
Ever. Like, the closest thing would have been the War of 1812.
Yeah.
It would be the closest thing to an actual foreign invasion force. Maybe like the Spanish-American War, but those are like little territories that we were fighting over. It wasn't like the mainland United States.
Since America has become what we think of as far as America.
Like since 1900.
Yeah. We haven't really even been at threat of being invaded.
Yeah.
Like, we had Pearl Harbor, which, I mean, not to downplay, obviously, how horrible Pearl Harbor was, but that was an attack on Hawaii, which is kind of an offshoot.
Well,
mainland America has never been attacked.
Well, and that was an attack, not a occupation.
Yeah.
Like, Red Dawn is about foreign occupying forces.
Yeah, we haven't had boots on the ground.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. And so something like Red Dawn, it sort of plays up the sort of weird fantasy of that happening.
Yeah, and
again, it goes back to the idea of it's a situation where America is facing overwhelming odds.
Yeah.
That America wouldn't really ever actually face.
Well, and I think one lesson to take from Red Dawn, I mean, a lot of war movies, the message is war is bad, which it is, but
it's very bad.
You see it from the perspective of American kids, when in reality, when America or any other country invades another country, that is what, maybe not to that exact storyline, but that's what happens to kids when someone invades their fucking country. And that's something that we cannot take lightly.
Yeah. Like, take Red Dawn and set it in
the Middle East.
The Middle East. And make all the main characters like whatever country it is in the Middle East. But the invading force is us.
Yeah. You could easily reverse that.
Yeah.
And then America would look like the bad guys.
Because, I mean, it just goes back to the idea that stories are told by the winners.
That's true.
And the good guys are always the winners because they're the ones who are around to tell their stories. So, like, if like the man in the high castle, tells the idea of like what would happen if the Nazis won the war. You look at them, and to them, Nazis are the good guys.
Yeah, that's a fascinating show. It's a good show.
Yeah, it's a good show. Not patriotic, so it's not like a subject.
No.
Of this episode, but I'm just kind of trying to illustrate the point that like in American films, we're unambiguous the good guys because we're always the ones who win. And if you just flip the script even a little bit, suddenly America could very easily.
Another interesting thing about Red Dawn is the way it ends. They basically just like take out the general.
Yeah,
but that didn't end. That didn't resolve anything.
Victory is not assured.
There's like still they're still occupying America. Like they didn't really solve anything.
Yeah, and the remaining Wolverines are fucked.
Yeah,
like they are just fucked. You know, like,
yeah,
because there's like 3 of them. They're gonna get butchered.
If you haven't seen Red Dawn in a while, watch it again. It's fucked up.
Yeah, and try to watch it with like a bit more critical eye, and I think you'll see that it's not as like, yay America, as you might think. But so, are there any other patriotic films that you feel like need to be mentioned here?
There are 2 superhero films that I think we should mention.
So basically any of the Captain America?
Well, Captain America, the first one,
is definitely very...
Yeah, like, especially the character of Steve Rogers. Like, for some reason, a lot of people don't look upon the first Captain America, the First Avenger fondly. I thought it was pretty dang good.
I think it's great. If you said, hey, John, you can only watch one Captain America movie, it would not be the First Avenger.
It would be Winter Soldier, because that's just how good Winter Soldier is.
Which is not a very patriotic film.
Just the character of Steve Rogers, especially before he becomes Captain America, just embodies so much American ideals, like when he's getting beat up in the alleyway and he gets up, he's like, I can do this all day.
Yeah, he's got that classic like Boy Scout mentality.
Yeah.
That is a very like, especially around that time, a very like common to see in stories as an example of like, this is what American grit is.
And then like when he's in training and he like dives on the grenade, like immediately everyone else is like, oh God, and he just dives on it.
Yeah.
And I mean, and that's the whole reason he gets chosen, is because he most embodies those ideals.
Yeah.
And that, you know, it's a superhero movie. It's called Captain America. It's unambiguously patriotic, but I think it gives you the right mentality of Steve Rogers.
Yeah. And then the Winter Soldier is kind of critical of... It's framed that it's being critical of S.H.I.E.L.D., but we know that it was being critical of the American government and its sort of like surveillance state ideals. So from there, it kind of stopped being like this super patriotic thing. And then obviously Civil War, he's literally fighting the government.
Yeah.
So like... kind of goes off the rails a little bit there. But the other like super American superhero film,
Christopher Reeve's Superman.
Christopher Reeve's Superman. He fights for truth, justice, and the American way.
Yeah. And I mean, that version of Superman, you know, grew up fucking Kansas wheat farm. You're talking about Captain America as a Boy Scout. Superman, Boy Scout.
Yeah. Just Superman as a character in general, with the exception of probably the Red Sun, like what if storyline, has always been this like bastion of American ideals and this very like, oorah, I fight for the world, but really I'm fighting for America. Like,
well, he's all about justice, all about protecting people.
Even to the point that in the Dark Knight Returns, the president of the United States, who's totally not Reagan, but it's totally Reagan, literally sends him to fight communists.
Man, we talked about Reagan a lot.
Well, because like a lot of like patriotic films were in the 80s, and a lot of that you could argue were like, it was a lot of response to the Cold War, and Reagan was a big part of that.
Yeah.
So of course Reagan's going to come up a lot. But yeah, like in Dark Knight Returns, like Superman literally is sent off to like fight what are effectively communists. So I don't think they ever like actually say what he's fighting, but it looks like he's fighting Cubans. But yeah, just Superman in general is a very American symbol, and the first Superman film, I feel, perfectly plays that up.
Here's the thing from Superman 2, which illustrates the point perfectly. The movie's most satisfying moment comes when he restores the American flag to the White House, telling the president, "Sorry I've been away so long, I won't let you down again." So he actually flies up with the flag, plants it on top of the motherfucking White House, and says, "I'll protect you, America. I'm
here, President. Mr. President." Like, yeah, it's a super American thing. Just Captain America and Superman kind of go hand in hand as like these American symbols, which is why when they did the Amalgam universe, they actually combined them, and we got Clark Kent, Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. That's a real thing.
Oh wow!
Also Super Soldier was another one that we got, which was basically Superman running around with a shield that had the S on it. Yeah. Because that was a thing. Amalgam universe. Check it out. It's bonkers. But yeah, anything else?
I can't really think of anything else. I think that's a really good list of patriotic movies across a wide spectrum.
And definitely there are a lot more that we didn't mention.
Oh yeah.
These were just a few that we felt necessary to talk about. So if there are any that you think that our audience should check out as being like very patriotic, very emblematic of American ideals, why don't you let us know? You can tweet at the Star Wipe Lounge on Twitter. Actually, it's just at Star Wipe Lounge, no the. Or you can get a hold of us individually. I am at Bender Waffles, and Owen here is at OwenScott_P.
Woo!
That is on both Twitter and Instagram, so get over there, check us out. you know,
You can jump in my DMs.
slide into Owen's DMs, as the kids say, and let us know. I will say, do not mention Team America World Police, because that's not a patriotic film. That's a satire making fun of America.
Yes.
As much as we wanted to mention it and talk about it here, it doesn't really.
I mean, if you take the America Fuck Yeah song completely out of context, go for it.
Yeah, coming again to save the motherfucking day. Yeah, America fuck yeah. But
because never forget, dicks fuck assholes.
Also don't forget that I Miss You like Pearl Harbor missed the point.
Pearl Harbor sucked. I Miss You like that movie missed the point.
Yeah.
So we didn't talk Pearl Harbor.
We didn't talk Pearl Harbor because that movie sucked.
and it missed the point.
It did, because that was a movie about a love triangle that happened to have Pearl Harbor in it. It's not a movie about Pearl Harbor that happens to have a love triangle in it. That's the problem with Pearl Harbor, is that it's like, that's not a movie about Pearl Harbor. That's a movie where Pearl Harbor happens around other things. Yeah. But anyways, so let us know your thoughts. Also, just, let us know if you've got any cool plans for the 4th of July. We're still trying to figure out what we're doing for the 4th of July. But, maybe if you send us some ideas, we'll be able to...
Oh, so what's your favorite patriotic film?
Yeah. And are you a hot dogs or a hamburger guy on the 4th of July?
Burgers all day.
Oh, dude, hot dogs.
Burgers all day.
To me, like, burgers are great, but nothing is more American than a hot dog. It's just my opinion. Anyways, guys, next week we are going to be probably reviewing Spider-Man Far From Home. And next week we will have a guest on the podcast. One Michael Mendoza will be joining us whether he likes it or not. To talk about Spider-Man Far From Home and a few other things.
I have a little preview.
Oh, you do?
It was good.
It was good. No, you want the real Michael Mendoza like experience?
Sure.